Durag Diaries. Today we have an update on the managerial search for the replacement of Ange Poster. No clue. And yes, he definitely has no clue. But we are talking about Francesco Farioli. And yes, I had to put the Italian accent on. I do have a little bit of heritage from myself in there. So just adding a little bit of, the herbs and spices. But more importantly, he has left his role as Ajax manager. He's only been there for less than a season. Well, it was a season, but less than a year, I should say. He joined in June 2024 after having a pretty good, decent season as Nice manager. And, well, just to give you the context for it, he left because he'd done a bad job. His team bottled a 9-point lead. And yes, a 9-point lead within the last 5 games. So the max amount of points is 15. They dropped points in 4 games to bottle the lead and give up the league to PSV. And post-match, pretty much didn't really comment on whether he would stay. But then the next day, he had come out and said that the club do not align with his vision and time frame for the club's goals. There's just a bit of a mess there, and clearly they aren't agreeing on certain things. Now, it is a record bottle job. There's no doubt about that. To put it right, Ajax, they have the expectation to win the league nearly every season. They do play in the Eredivisie, where they are one of the top clubs and the top earners. So it's only right that they compete for the title at a bare minimum. I think the problem here was that they had the 9-point lead, and he fumbled that. So he's messed himself up and probably not looking in a good place to the board and the club officials themselves. So there's apparently a difference on opinion behind the scenes. And supposedly there was some pushback regarding the actual recruitment because the technical director, Alex Kroos, didn't agree with some of the things that Farioli had wanted in. Now, with regards to him coming to Spurs, it could potentially be a move that we look at. He's a young manager, a top up-and-coming young manager. Used to work under De Zerbi as a goalkeeper coach at his time during Sassuolo. And now when you look at his football, it's very similar to Ange. He plays with a 4-3-3. He has 1 number 6, 2 8s, and then he plays with the wingers. He also likes to invert his fullbacks. They don't go as high as Ange's fullbacks and join the midfield and to make a sort of a 2 number 10s, but they do tend to come into that midfield and join the 6 to make a midfield 3 and then have the 2 defenders sitting behind them. So there are definitely some similarities to the system that could make for an easy transfer into him as a manager. Now, his teams also like to play very front-footed, high line, high counter press, and likes to catch teams out with their wingers using those half spaces between the centre-back and the fullback. So he's a manager that matches up to what Tottenham have been doing quite a bit of this season. He's also someone who likes to focus a bit more on the coaching aspect on the game. He's someone who has been renowned for being a coach for in his younger years, of course, because he's only had 2 seasons at the top level, with decent clubs. But in that time, he's been able to take players and make them that little bit better. Of course, this year, he had Jordan Henderson at the helm, his captain, Mr. Passion himself, leading the club. And hey, in the English fashion, he bottled it. So maybe it's not Farioli's fault. Maybe it was Hendo. Now, to give you a bit more of a background into Farioli and how his actual season has gone with Ajax. When he took on the role as Ajax, he was tasked with getting the team back into the competitive form, you could say, because they finished 5th last year. I think it's one of the lowest finishes that they've had in as of recent history. I could say the last 20 years in my time of being a football fan, I've never known Ajax to finish so low, out of the European places for their league. I think they was in maybe conference. I think they finished outside the European places. I'm pretty sure. I can double check that afterwards, but that's neither here or there. They finished 5th. They finished a lot lower than what was expected of them. So he was supposed to get them competitive again. He has done that, although hasn't reached his actual goal and bottled it in the end. He has done that. They went from fifth to second. From in his time as Ajax manager, and he's actually, I didn't know this. Just fun fact: he's the first non-Dutch manager to take over Ajax since 1998. So that was their first time in nearly 30 years, and apparently now it looks like it's a good decision to stick with Dutch managers because the first time they go away from them, they don't work. Now this rule doesn't apply for Spurs or the Premier League, luckily. And him being an Italian manager, the one thing that they do definitely excel in is they are defensive first. As Sir Alex Ferguson said, yeah, attack may win you games, but defenses will win you titles. And that's one of Spurs' bigger problem this season is our defense, our defensive the way that we set up, let's just say defensive structure is so bad that it's just open wide, yeah, just legs open. All these teams are just scoring goals, beating us because they could just break through our attack so easily. He has managed to get such a good defensive record with Ajax and Nice the previous season. I think it was one of Nice's better defensive records that they've had in recent times, as in the League One, whatever it is. And he's currently averaging just under a goal each game. So that's a huge improvement from what we've seen on Ange. And one of the things as well that is you could say an opposite to Ange is he likes to rotate his side. I read up that apparently his Ajax side hadn't played they hadn't played the same team in consecutive league games all season because he likes to make a lot of changes. He likes to make sure that his teams are fit, they're high energy, high pressing. So he likes to bring in new players and just try new solutions. And ultimately, it's what's improved them as a team and probably going to put them in a better position going into next season. But it's also the thing that may have been the reason as to why they didn't win the league in the end. So, look, he's a manager that could come to Spurs and could be an option, especially with Fabio Paratici coming back in to Spurs' fold as sporting director. An Italian manager could be on the cards. I mean, before we were speaking to Conte, we were speaking to the like of Paulo Fonseca, we were speaking to Gattuso. So it seemed like Fabio Paratici staying close to home. Farioli is one of these managers that will be an option for Spurs, especially now that he is available immediately. I'm sure that there will be some talks that take place. But look, people, we are going to keep more of these coming. So keep a lookout for any managerial updates. We're going to come with them as soon as they get released. But in the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the channel. As you can see, we're on the road to 2K. Follow me on the socials. And if you want to support just a little bit extra, you can buy me a coffee on the left by scanning this QR code. But big up to everyone that's tuned in. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And until next time, peace.